Hi, welcome to lecture number 4 in Academic Writing About Literature. I am your instructor, Cynthia Sims, and I wanted to go through some really important issues with writing essays in this class. So a couple of the different issues that have come up are how much to quote, how much to include the theories that we're reading in your papers, and how much to use the actual lines of text from the writing that you're reading. But the biggest issue is how much should you use your own opinion. And I know that if you love literature, and as I do, you're going to be harmed seriously, emotionally and mentally by not giving your own opinion about the writings that you're reading and not being able to really discuss them. And so there's some space for that. But when you do that in these papers, what I want you to do is give a caveat or an explanation that that is your opinion and that you're aware that that's your opinion. Also keep in mind that you're taking a space in a paper that's about theory to give your own opinion. So ask yourself, what is that doing for the paper that is about some specific theories? So I'll go back to the assignments and then we can talk about what that means. Okay, so in essay 1, what I asked you to do was to go through and see if I can get this screen to go up. Was to go through and talk about Barth's theory and discuss in brief a reading that you'd done previously. So it's really important that you do that, exactly that. So you're going through here, and here are the expectations. Is the author dead? That's the question you're asking yourself. So you're kind of exploring this idea of reader response theory. You're just kind of just launching into it a little bit. So there's this poem that you're reading. There are some readings that you were required to annotate and respond to Barth's actual reading. Also Kiefer's article. If those didn't appear in your paper by referring to them as quotes or referring specifically to them and using page numbers, then you missed something. So your grade will reflect that. And you have one opportunity from the time that I grade it to resubmit your papers for any paper that you write in this class. So this is a learning curve. However, you don't have 2 opportunities. You only have 1. So you'll watch these videos. Death of the Author, the request was to watch it at least twice, and you're doing a 500-word paper. So there's a sample paper here, and if you haven't gone over that sample paper very clearly, I would strongly encourage you to do so. And the reason why is when I open a paper, and this is a student paper, and I look at it, I wonder why it doesn't meet the expectations, or whether it does or it doesn't. So it becomes very clear, in other words. So here's the sample paper that's going to pull up on the screen, or I have to click to it. And so when I click to it, what I find is that here's an annotated paper that this one should look just like. So it should be double spaced all. So this isn't all double spaced. This has an extra line here. So I guess I would highlight it and go through format, paragraph, and double space it all, because part of it didn't get double spaced. And now it is. So it really doesn't take a lot of time to go through and do your formatting in your papers, but I do expect you to do them. So, and on this particular essay, the author's name isn't on it. So when I open it in Word, it doesn't appear, whereas on this essay, it does. Okay, so for many of you, this is old hat, and you know this, and you've already written in essay courses before, and you're familiar with either MLA or APA or how to write your paper. So what I'm going to look at next is the citations page. So when I go to the citation page, there isn't one. So when I go to this citation page, there is. There's a works cited page, and they're hanging indent. So this is all the sources that are cited in your paper. So what should be cited in your paper? Well, if I look back on what I requested of you was that you go through and note exactly what you were supposed to include in your paper, which was these essays. So you were supposed to talk about Barth's bio, the death of the author, and Kiefer's article, and all of that should be here. And so when I look at the works cited, all of these should be here. So if I come to your paper and those aren't there, then I'm not exactly sure why they're not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to immediately say, okay, well, this person doesn't understand citation, doesn't understand college writing, hasn't gotten to the point where they're doing what they need to do in this paper. So the paper isn't doing the work that it needs to do. So the second thing that I would look for is I would look for a very brief introductory paragraph. So this paragraph is really huge. And what I'm looking for is something more along the lines of this. I'm going to lay out, in this essay, I'm going to lay out the differences between theory, points of view for Ode to My Sharona, poem by Alexei. This is the different, this is essay 2. But it's still what we're doing. It's the next step. So it tells us what we're going to do. So this essay doesn't tell me what you're going to do. This says this week's readings dove into the question of who's responsible for the works of art that we love. Yes, all of this is good writing, but there are some citations that don't give me page numbers, and this is a great reading of Barth's, but I don't know what this essay itself is all about. So the author of this essay jumps right into saying everything that they read in that essay, which is exactly what I want you to do, and I want you to use that, but I don't want you to just give me all of that in the first paragraph. Tell me what you're going to do in that essay, in the entire essay. So Barth also talks about this, he talks about that. We were also asked to read this, and that's the end. So that's my problem is that the essay can't end on the reading that you were supposed to look at through the theory's eyes or through this theorist's eyes. So Hemingway is given credit as the author, but based on Barth's idea, one could argue that Hemingway should not be given credit for the poem. I would just say sort of. You wrote a lot of information about what you read, and I would go back to that and say, what is it that he's actually talking about? He's saying that the words kind of write themselves. We just kind of are there as a vehicle for it to happen. And why did Barth talk about that? And Barth talked about the death of the author because the author was getting all of the credit. We couldn't read something by Freud without saying, oh, well, that's about his childhood, and that's about his mom, and that's about this, and that's about that. The writing couldn't be about anything else. Or it was how we reacted to it, but it couldn't be about just what we're reading in it. So a flower could never just be a flower. So formalist writing rebels against that and looks at what's actually in the writing. Each of these theories does something very specific. So what I want you to do is I want you to look specifically at what that theory does and then do that to the writing in the way that the theorist would. So when we're looking at My Sharona, so I understand what the author is going to do in this essay. We're going to look at two different things: formalist response and reader theory. So reader response theory. So collective overall, the aesthetic quality of the poem is that it's well written and it contributes to the vision of what the reader needs. So I'm not really sure what that is, whether that's reader response or formalist theory. So he resolves this, and he talks about what he does in the poem. There's imagery, it's eye-catching, and then there's a quote, but there's no line of the poem that has to be there. Have to use lines of the poems, have to use citations with page numbers. So the expected readership is these people, and I'm wondering what is being done in here. So is this reader response theory? Is this formalist theory? I would expect it this is formalist maybe, but he doesn't even say it in the paper. It's not said. So I need you to say it. So in this, it looks like it is this is all reader response theory, but he doesn't say it, and we don't know that this is the expected readership is from reader response theory. I know it, and you know it, but it needs to be clear in there. So in closing, formalist response is narrow-minded. Every theory has its additions and subtractions to add to the reading of any literature. So it's not narrow-minded. It covers certain things. What does it cover? So that's on you, is to take your judgment out and just stand back and say, oh, okay, so this is about this. This is about this. You're going to like this theory. You're going to not like this theory. You're going to like this theorist, and you're not going to like that theorist. Your preferences aren't really as much of a part of your paper. Your tone is going to tell me how you feel about it. You don't have to spend a lot of time on the page telling me how you feel about it. That's going to be really obvious. Okay, so I want to look at one other thing, maybe two if we have time. So this essay by a student in this class, so I'm giving a caveat that I've used your papers and we're going to talk about them further, the good things that they've done and some things that are lacking. And there's really no better way to do it. I wouldn't want to bring something in from another class and another assignment. This is just much better. So I looked for the guideline. The name was here. Everything was here. So that really matched up with what I'm looking for in MLA. So my MLA guideline is clear and important to me. So this is great. So I kind of line this up, put it here, pull the paper in, see how it lines up. It does. I'm happy. That's great. That's what you want. So this is essay 3 on gender criticism. So this is a good setup. Literature has long been a voice for the oppressed, a tool for those who want to see change in the world. This is the writer's perspective. With the rise of feminism, there came a rush of literary works depicting the social status of the genders as well as societal expectations. An excellent example is John Updike's A&P, 1962. Brilliant. The year is there. It's super important. It's really important all the way through this essay that the years are used, even though they're not in MLA writing. They are in APA writing, and you aren't required to because it's not MLA writing. But the reason why that actually helps in this essay is because there's a time frame that we're talking about. When was Adrienne Rich writing? 1970s, 1980s. When was A&P? 1960s. So it does matter. So time frames do matter when people wrote things. When Barthes wrote his essay. It's important. So we're talking about gender and compulsory heterosexuality in the lesbian experience. Adrienne Rich, super well known, describes the power of men, which includes forcing sexuality upon women. In Updike's story, this is what happens. These are some very specific quotations. And so I would look for some citations from Rich too, but I wouldn't find any. So although this essay does cite the A&P very well, you can see at a quick cursory glance that that's the only citation here. The only citation are the citations from paragraph 1, paragraph 2, although she cites Bordeaux's Unbearable Weight as saying where the essay is in the book. The essay itself isn't cited. So I'm still looking for that. So I'm just letting you know what I'm looking for still in your essays. So I'm still looking for some of those things. The citations are great. This is